welcome to a very special edition of Barista Unfiltered, where you get to listen to our guest play instead of me. This is the 17th episode of Barista Unfiltered. We are a podcast dedicated to the life and times of baristas. We find out what's going on in their lives and work in this free-flowing and unfiltered podcast. I'm Jodie Lee.
And I'm Austin Miller.
And I'm Gary Jugert.
And we're so excited he's with us today. So behind us, if you're watching us on YouTube, we are at Gary's corporate headquarters.
World domination headquarters.
And we'll get into what he's trying to dominate the world with pretty soon. If you're on YouTube, you already have a clue. Austin, how are you this morning?
I'm doing okay. Not as cold as you guys, but it's like 39 degrees in San Francisco.
That's
people are really complaining.
Yeah. It was -5 this morning when I got up, and my sliding glass door was frozen shut. I had to go get a screwdriver and a hammer to chisel out the little wooden dowel rod because it had frozen to the door.
Well, I had to put on a hat when I went outside this morning, so it was intense.
And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that Austin's hat is a prairie dog.
It is a groundhog.
Groundhog. It's like a beaver to me. I don't know who can tell the difference in hat form between prairie dog, beaver, and groundhog.
Get your mammals straight.
I'll have to work on that. All right. Well, first thing we want to know from Gary is what kind of coffee you had this morning.
Well, this morning I had Starbucks Komodo blend, and I do it in a French press. And I think I've been having that every single morning for the last 15 years or so. I vacillate between Sumatra and Komodo. Usually I'm an Asian coffee drinker, so I'm black coffee drinker. That's what I start almost every day with.
And French press.
French press.
Do you add milk to it?
Of course not.
No milk.
No, you use milk on bad coffee. That's how I've always felt like. So.
Oh, I thought you used milk if you're a wimp.
I'm a wimp for bad coffee. So yes, I do occasionally put in cream on some of the local roasters. We have to add a little bit of covered up. So that's what cream is for.
Okay, good to know. How would you describe that Komodo blend? Some people describe coffees like fine wines. They can taste all these different variations. I'm sure you're one of those people who knows.
Well, I worked for Starbucks for 12 years, and during that time, we spent a lot of time doing coffee tastings and that sort of thing. And I feel like I have a pretty good taste palette now. I can really taste it just like you would a wine tasting. Obviously, we don't have the complexity that wine has in general, but I found over the years that my taste has changed from what I would consider a typical American palate into being a much more refined palate. And I pretty much only drink Indonesian coffees anymore. Occasionally an African will be kind of entertaining. This particular coffee I like the dark roast. I'm an old guy, so we like our dark roasts, and just has a very winey feeling to it, and an overall just smooth character and depth of body that I really enjoy.
Austin, what did you drink this morning?
I had Spike's house blends.
You just rolled down the street.
Extra large. Yeah, I'm still working on it, actually.
Well, I had to get up early to come into Denver because we're on location today at Gary's headquarters. And I stopped by Crema, which is one of my favorite coffee shops in these parts. And I connected up with Jo, the barista there. I just love her. And she's going to be on the show soon. So her coffee is just some of the best. She's my favorite around here. So anywho, so I don't know a whole lot about Gary's background. Just so you all know, how I know Gary is through the Rocky Mountain Ukulele Orchestra. I know all of those words put together are shocking. We're going to get into that. So brace yourselves. He is the conductor of the largest orchestra in Colorado, and it is a bunch of ukulele players. And we currently have how many members?
Well, we have 85 that'll show up and about 110 altogether.
Okay, so we have 110 enthusiasts.
That's pretty good attendance rate, actually.
Yeah, it's interesting because we do work every single week, and it is hard on people to be there every single week. So we do have 110, but week to week, it depends on who's can get free to be there. And because we're a rehearsed orchestra, the closer the concert comes, the better the attendance gets.
The more we freak out. All of us, including Gary.
She freaks out. I don't freak out.
So anyway, that's how I know Gary. I've known him for about a year, and he has changed my life in immeasurable ways. He is an excellent music teacher, but I don't know a lot about his background. Like in particular, I don't know where he's from or if he, landed in Colorado recently, if he's from somewhere else. We're going to get into some of that right now. Tell us about yourself.
Well, I grew up out in Lakewood, Colorado, which is 12 blocks from here, and I spent my almost my entire life here in Denver. We did move to New Mexico for a short, well, it was 8 years. It felt like 12 years. I'm not a huge fan of Albuquerque, but that's where my wife is from. And so we spent a bunch of years there and then moved back here. I now live down here in downtown Denver on Capitol Hill, a few blocks from where we're meeting right now. And I went to Green Mountain High School, and I went to University of Colorado in Boulder up the street. And that's where I come from. I don't know what else you want to know about me.
That's a lot.
That's the beginning. That's where I started.
You're a Colorado native.
Colorado native. My parents are also Colorado natives. My grandparents on both sides came to Colorado as immigrants.
So Denver is booming. If you don't know much about Denver, Colorado, we have listeners all over the world. So I'm sort of talking to all of y'all that are in other countries. Denver, Colorado is booming, and we've got something like 100,000 people moving here every year. The state passed recreational and medical marijuana laws that allow that. And so large groups of people are moving here for that, for health purposes, but also there's great growth in tech industry here. So it's a boom. There's a ton of people that are interested in living in Denver. And so because of that, there are lots of transients, people from other places, myself included. Like I'm from North Carolina, I'm part of the problem. But just to be clear, I got here before marijuana. So fine with it, but that's not why I moved here. But it's really hard to find a person who is truly from Colorado and can name 2 generations back. Like that is truly incredible. I think I know maybe 5-10 people like that since I've gotten here.
I think there's a reason for that. Back when I grew up, Denver was not that great of a town, and there was a lot of economic troubles here in the late 70s, early 80s, and basically everybody in my high school immediately moved out of town when they could. And so it wasn't uncommon that there was a huge number of people in my lifetime who moved out of the state and then they didn't come back. Denver's a different place now. It's a more exciting and vibrant city, a lot more stable economically. And so, there are a lot of new people here, and those of us who've been around a while are against all of this, but it is what's going on.
It is. It's tremendous growth. Even since I've been coming here since the 90s, and I moved here in 2010, spring of 2010, and it's just incredible. Like the traffic, the population's just grown incredibly. So it's fun to find a native. It's rare. All right, tell us about your first barista job. What the coffee shop was like, what kind of community you were serving, like what was that like?
Well, my fascination with coffee began back in high school. There was one coffee shop back in the day, one in Denver, and it was called Muddy Waters of the Platte, and it was opened, I think, around 1977. And we, of course, were suburban kids going there trying to be literary, and people would wear berets and they would smoke clove cigarettes, and it was a very legitimate coffee shop. And that's where I fell in love with coffee. Back in those days, we did not really know that espresso was supposed to taste good. It tasted very bitter. It'd give you a stomach ache, actually. And I remember them having a pitcher. They called it a chocolatino, and it was basically a giant mocha. And they would put 5 shots in it, and then this chocolate mixture. And we would, as these high school kids, crowded around the table, trying not to, be. Trying not to become communists at this coffee shop. We would try this chocolatino, and inevitably you would get all amped up on the espresso, of course, but you would also end up feeling sick for the next day because the espresso was so poorly made. But we thought that's what espresso was supposed to be like. And I think I fell in love with the culture at that point more than the coffee itself. And over the, early part of the 80s, a few more coffee shops started to show up. And it wasn't really until Starbucks came around where we actually found out what espresso was supposed to taste like, and that it didn't have to hurt. And so at that point, I became a Starbucks fan, and was, I don't know, middle 2000s. I went to work for them, I think 2006, and I worked for them for about 12 years. And I had nothing but positive experiences there until I became a manager. Then it was a little iffy, but the company and the attitude toward coffee was always what I thought was exactly the kind of environment I wanted to be in. Very fast paced. There's, you make compromises with quality versus speed sometimes. But so my first job was at Kipling in Florida, out in Lakewood. And I saw on the news just the other day that they had another car crash at that intersection. And over the years, when I was there, we had several car crashes that would end up in our parking lot. And this one actually went through the front door last week. Apparently everybody's okay, but they just finished running a car through it and making it a true drive-through.
So it went into the front door of your Starbucks?
Yeah, went right in the front door.
Oh my God.
It scares the heck out of you because it was a busy drive-through as it is, and because it's on such a dangerous intersection, people really speed too fast. And we had, on a couple of different occasions, we had cars either in the lot or on the property somewhere that had been smashed through there. And so we always called it a real drive-through, and we just never had anybody actually in the lobby, but apparently just last week somebody did.
Is it one of those glass front stores?
Yeah, it is.
So
It's an old gas station, and it's not far from where I used to live. In fact, when it was a gas station, it was actually a really convenient place to buy methamphetamines as well, we learned later. And so they got rid of the gas station and the owners of that, and converted it to a Starbucks, and it's been that way now for 15 years or so. And it just is on a real busy corner, and it's all glass out front. And so, I am surprised we didn't have more cars in there, but there is parking right in front of it as well. So you got a buffer of a couple of cars to tell if they can actually get in there.
So the cars that crashed probably went through those cars, and then
it appeared from the picture that they had obviously hit the back of some car and pushed that one into the lobby, is I think what happened there. So yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, crazy.
Do you get any choice, like when you work for Starbucks, do you get any choice at which one you work at?
You can work at anyone in the world, and provided they can fit you on the schedule, of course. But yeah, it's a nice company for being able to move around a bit. The Starbucks benefits really have a tendency to attract a certain type of barista. The young ones come and go just like any other fast food type service industry. But the Starbucks offers, college, and they offer healthcare, and for part-time workers even. And so there's a number of benefits associated with the company that tend to keep people who were my age. I obviously started when I was 40 there. And so, for me, it was a really good place to get some health care, and as well as not necessarily work full time. I didn't want to work full time. And, so for the employees, generally speaking, it's a pretty easy place to be. And, and they give you the opportunity to try different locations. I worked at many of the Starbucks here in Denver, on a substitute basis over the years.
And so what I want to talk to you about Starbucks in Denver is that 2006, there weren't that many. Like I remember Broomfield had one, and now I think Broomfield's got like 8.
Yeah.
So you were kind of experiencing all of the growth in the Starbucks here too.
Well, it's interesting. About 2006, when I got there, was about the end of what I'd call the old Starbucks era, and it's converting to the new Starbucks era. They were at that point, they were phasing out all of their La Marzocco machines, which is the barista standard for great espresso, and putting in these more automated machines. And so there was a clear switch in the company's approach they knew they needed to go faster in order to make to keep up with drive-throughs and the different technology that needed to go into that. And so there was definitely 2006, 7, and 8. There was definitely this feeling of getting rid of the old, slower systems and switching to the newer, more modern systems. And I think that led to some pretty impressive growth in the company. And so they were able to open up a lot more shops. And you see most Starbucks now that are going in all have drive-throughs associated with them.
Did they? Did you feel like their quality changed when they did that? Like when they switched out the Marzukas and that kind of stuff, or did they do a pretty good job of keeping standards?
I think it was a very rough transition. As I recall, when we, for a time, there was, as they were phasing out the old machines and putting in the new ones. As a consumer, I would go to the stores that had the old machines because the coffee seemed better. But they got harder and harder to find, obviously, as they were phasing those old machines out. And yeah, I think there was definitely a dip in quality for a long time. I do remember at one point them closing the entire company for a day or a few hours anyway to retrain us in quality on the new machines. And so I think there was a compromise in quality over speed, generally speaking. But that always goes down to the barista level, right? Does the barista care to make a great latte, or are they in a hurry? And I think they still have that mentality that we want to do a great job. Just does that barista have the right attitude as they're building your drink?
So when they're pulling the espresso shot, is that like automated, and anybody who has proper training could walk up to a machine? Anybody like me even could do the same shots? Or
For the current machines that they're using are very automated. You do have some control over them, certainly not to the level that an independent shop would have over their the La Marzocco machines, but there is quite a bit of control over it. But generally speaking, they're very automated, so they're they're quite a bit faster, and they're designed to be set into a particular routine that the barista is designed to carry.
Do you tamp at a Starbucks now?
No, the machine does that.
Yeah, I would imagine actually for a company of that size, I've thought about this a lot. Yeah, of course you want the baristas to understand tamping, understand the pressure and everything. But for a company of that size, I bet that's a huge liability. If you have people tamping or doing that kind of repetitive stuff, because you're going to have injuries and you're going to have repetitive stress injuries that people will probably sue them over.
Well, I think I remember some of the baristas who were around prior to my arrival who did work extensively on those did have carpal tunnel issues. They did have health issues related to the stress of doing everything manually. And
yeah,
most of them were delighted to see the more automated machines coming along, even though they didn't necessarily have the same level of control over their final product.
Right. But then at what point, you have to ask also, like, at what point does the barista become completely irrelevant? Like, like the customer could just go in and there's just a robot that does the whole thing and like spits out your coffee, and it's the same thing.
I have a funny story about that. Ruben from Jodie? Have I ever told you the story? I came in one day and he was busy doing something. I don't know, but he probably using the bathroom. He went to leave the station and I was like, I mean, how hard can this be? I probably can make my own coffee. And you know how Ruben is. He met me right with that challenge. He was like, yeah, go right ahead, make your own coffee. And I went back there and I had no idea what I was doing, but he let me fumble and just stared at me, like Ruben would.
Well, and I think it's an important thing we do have robots building different things now, but it still takes people to run them. And at the end of the day, coffee requires, a competent barista to oversee that process in one way, depending on what machine it is. And, I think you can go to the same coffee shop and have two different baristas make your drink, and it will come out differently both times. And so it really does come down to the individual running those machines, no matter how automated they are, as to what the final product looks like.
And the steaming the milk is still something that the individual barista is in charge of.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's you sacrifice speed versus quality type thing. Most of the baristas that have been around a long time at Starbucks will produce every bit as high quality steam as an independent shop would do.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Well, we're not quite moving on from Starbucks because I want to talk about the master program at Starbucks. You were one of the first people to do that.
Not one of the first people to do it, but certainly one of the most passionate. They call it the Coffee Master Program. Very few baristas ever take the time to go through it. It's a lengthy process. It's sort of self-driven, and what you do is you drink hundreds of cups of coffee. And it's where I developed my taste for coffee and my ability to distinguish all of the flavors. That's why I can no longer drink Latin American coffee at all, because you just drink so much of it. And it helps you really define your palate. It helps you to talk about quality control and that type of stuff. So it's a fairly effective program for making really top quality baristas, even in that major corporation chain. And I know that out there, I was sort of the leader because I was the first coffee master at the store. And then I helped, I don't know, probably half a dozen other people, maybe even more than that over the years, get their coffee master certification. It involves doing a seminar and teaching other baristas proper techniques and that type of thing. So it's one of those places where you're hoping to really have a good quality control and a really elevated level of knowledge when it came to it.
And how much does that affect your pay scale? Like how much?
You don't. It doesn't at all.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's just something that individual baristas decide to do, and then hopefully you've got a manager that supports you. I ended up supporting several managers as they were going through their process to get their coffee masters as well. So, you're in this process of just constantly trying to get the people who are going to stick around up to that high level of knowledge and high level of expertise. But there's no pay incentive to do that, unfortunately.
How much time would you say you put in? Like, how long did it take you to get that designation?
Well, my manager who walked me through it was really tough on me. So I spent an entire year prior working on it. Basically, almost every single shift to some extent working on it. I think you technically can go through it in about 12 to 15 weeks, but my manager wasn't having anything to do with that. She wanted me to know every single thing there was to know about that. So her name was Desti Guthrie, and she lives down in, I think, Alabama or Louisiana, or one of those bug-filled states, and she I think she thought I was a bit of a comedian, so she wanted to straighten me out. So
she should have known better.
She should have known
better. Do you have to be taught by a coffee master to be a coffee master?
Yes.
So then if you're at a shop that doesn't have a coffee master,
you reach out to some of the other stores in the neighborhood. I don't know how many there are in Denver, probably not that many, but there's enough where you can, take time to go to one of the other stores to get that.
And so you get a black apron?
Yeah, you get the black apron. That's why you do. That's why you do it.
That's why you do it.
That's your pay increase, is you get to wear the black apron. So
does anybody like coming into the store recognize what you've done based on that black apron? They do?
Oh yeah. Many of the customers know the deal. And just as we were talking earlier about, it's the person behind the machine that makes the difference. When you walk into a store and you see somebody with a black apron, you are assuming that they're working at a higher standard and just have sort of an ethical requirement by wearing that apron to produce the finest coffee that they can.
Do you still see your regulars around town?
I ran into one the other day out in Lakewood, and I spent 8.5 years at one location, and when I left, one of my fellow baristas says, "Hey, we need to have a going away party." I said, "All right, fine." So we had a thing at Old Chicago, just open invitation. We had more than 100 people show up, which was super rewarding to me. Because I'm just a guy in a fast food restaurant, more or less, and I never, but you make connections over the year, and then, of course with Starbucks, customers are coming in every single day, and so I felt really gratified by that. And I saw one of my customers that I haven't seen in about 5 years, and she says, "That place has fallen apart since you left," which is not true, but it was kind of her to say. So.
Well, certainly less cheerful, right?
I don't know. I did drive through there a year ago, and nobody knew that I had ever worked there. So it's
that must be a weird feeling too, right? You work somewhere that you spent 8.5 years, and then you go through and you're just other regular
just
person.
customer now.
Yeah,
it's I guess it's on some level it's disappointing. On some level, though, it's also like, hey, we got to keep renewing this business. We got to keep things changing and all the time. And yeah, it's weird because I did put a lot of time and energy in years over that one little building, and then nobody knows that is there.
Did you carve your initials in the bar somewhere or something and be like, back in my
I
day?
should have, right? I didn't do that. I should have.
Maybe sneak in there and do it sometime.
They remodel it. Sometimes you write something on a board, that's not going to be seen until they unremodel. But
that's totally what I did in my house. We remodeled our whole house in Broomfield, and so with the paint, I have always like painted some little sweet poem or something like that.
Right, there you go. Somebody finds somewhere down the road.
Yeah, when they finally take those
like hidden in the wall.
Yeah. What?
Hidden in
like
the
what?
wall somewhere.
No, actually, it's like I painted it on. So when people remove the cabinets, they'll find them.
Oh, nice.
So if you want to buy my house and remodel it, there's some.
There's a poem coming.
There's a poem. All right. Well, I know what you really want to talk about is ukuleles, because this man is mad about ukuleles. Is like mad, like crazy mad about ukuleles. I want to know how you got started playing ukulele, and were you already a musician?
Well, so my musical background was in 5th and 6th grade. I played the trumpet, and I learned how to read music there. And then I didn't touch anything again until I was 35, and we were moving back from Albuquerque to Denver with an old piano that had been broken. And so while it was on the truck, we took it over and had it repaired. And then when it came back, I says, well, I'm going to learn how to play this thing. So I took about 10 years worth of piano lessons, and I got okay, right? I wasn't a great piano player by any stretch of the imagination, but I was okay. And it got where I was needing 2.5, even 3 hours just to keep my skill set up, and I just didn't have it. And about that time, well, it was slightly before I started working at the coffee shop. I found a ukulele in an antique shop, and it said made in West Germany, Berlin, or American sector, I think is what it said on the inside of the ukulele. And I thought, oh, that's cool. I got a very, famous ukulele. So I brought it home, started messing around with it. And back in those days, YouTube wasn't a thing yet. And really, there was very little on the internet about how to play the ukulele. I remember I took the strings on a ukulele are not in order. And so I remember taking them off and putting them in order because I thought somebody had strung the thing. And, there weren't any books really available. And so I kind of had to teach myself using my piano background how to play the thing. And pretty soon it just took over as my instrument of choice. And I just love it.
So that was like a little over 10 years ago?
Almost 18 years ago now. I was thinking about it the other day. I think coming up here in a few months, it was been about 18 years ago that I got. I think 2002 is when I think I got it. So
you have a lovely wife.
I do. She's all right. Huh?
She's wonderful. She's wonderful, and I've heard you say many sweet things about her. And I've met her personally, and she's delightful.
She's the best.
How has she taken to this ukulele-ness?
I think she's still hoping I'll get over it. I think. I think most everybody is hoping I get over it. I would say, she's been very supportive of me, and I don't necessarily. I'm not really a great catch when it comes to husbands, in the sense of that I'm not driven by the things you're supposed to be driven by. I'm really an artistic soul, and she's been very tolerant of things over the years, and God love her. When your husband is working as a barista and playing the ukulele, you have difficult conversations at cocktail parties, and so that's where we're at.
So does she have any interest in playing ukulele?
No, over the years she's tried once or twice, and she's memorized a couple of my beginner songs but she played piano a lot as a kid, and she's actually may end up taking some singing lessons, but ukulele doesn't draw her like it draws me.
Is she more of a type A personality than you are?
Well, she's a much more type A personality than me, but everybody's a much more type A personality than me. And, it's interesting because I don't think what we found in the orchestras we've been building it is that type A isn't necessarily automatically take you out of the running to be a musician. I mean, we think, I would say probably the vast majority of highly accomplished musicians are very artistic souls deep down in where they are. But I think the nice part about ukulele is it does also feed those people who need to be organized and need to have the mathematical side of things and really want to have their notebook set up properly and all that. It feeds those people as well.
So talk a little bit about the orchestra, because we've got listeners all over the world that have no idea what we're talking about.
So the Rocky Mountain Ukulele Orchestra came out of an idea I had. I had my first ukulele, and I sat in the basement for many years trying to learn how to play this thing, what I would consider properly. When we first started out, there was one group in town here. There were 6 or 7 of us that would meet to do strum along type meetings, and that's where you get your chords and your lyric sheet and you sing and you strum, and they're very fun and they're very helpful for you learning how to do your chord shapes. But after you've been going for a few months, you realize it's always going to be more of the same. And I've noticed in watching ukulele grow in the country that there's a whole bunch of that going on where it's just sort of more of the same type thing. And I wanted to take music to a higher level. I wanted to start looking at what would happen if we combined, there's 4 main types of ukuleles. And what if we combine the voicings in all of those to create multiple layers of sound? And so I started teaching ukulele to get a few more players that thought like I did. And then when we had our first meeting, 7 people showed up to the Rocky Mountain Ukulele Orchestra to get started. And we just kept at it. We kept trying to learn how to write multi-part music, and we kept thinking about what that instrument brings to the game that's different than a violin or a cello or a trumpet. And over the years, we've developed a number of writers who are very good at building multi-part arrangements. And I think now that we're the largest stringed orchestra probably in the Rocky Mountains. And what we've learned from that is that in order to have our very quiet, very small instrument make a big sound, you got to have a lot of people. And so that's why I've been a little unrelenting about trying to get to as many people in the city and saying, hey, you need to join this. You need to learn how to play it. You need to learn how to play it at a higher level than just simply strumming and singing, and bringing all of the background that I could possibly bring musically to that to create an orchestra. And we're pretty proud of our results so far. I think we are doing music that's different than pretty much every other ukulele group on the planet. And there are a few people out there as crazy as us, but for the most part, we're doing something that's pretty unique. And I'm really excited that we have, this huge continuum of ukulele possibilities in the city at this point.
Now, if you're listening to this podcast and you want to learn ukulele, don't be scared off by the fact that this all sounds so grand. When I'm going to tell this story. The first time I met Gary was through his website, and you should go look at it. It's ukuleleorchestra.org. It just read it. Even if you don't care about ukulele, just read it, because you'll be so delighted by his charm, his wit, his good nature. It all comes through on the page. So I'm reading this because I just learned how to play Mele Kalikimaka for my mama for Christmas in 2017. And so I'm trying to find, where are my people in Denver that are playing ukulele? I want to get better. And I come upon this website, and I'm in tears laughing at it. It's so funny, and I'm like, is this a real human? Did some mechanical thing write this to draw me in, but it's not real, because it was just too good to be true. So then I pick up the phone and I call Gary, left him a voicemail, calls me back, and he's definitely not a robot. He's a human. And I said, look, here's the thing. I only know how to play C, F, and sort of G, mostly G7. I'm faking my way through G, and I'm not that good. And I probably need to be told no, that I shouldn't be, doing this orchestra thing, but I just want to come and just try real hard. And as a person who has organized groups of dancers and singers in my lifetime, I know sometimes people need to be told no. And I was like, maybe I'm that person. And he took a deep breath and he goes, I'm not going to tell you no. You come and see what you find, and if you like it, stick around. Which was the best answer ever. And now, as I'm teaching ukulele to people, that's how I respond too. So thanks for that mentorship.
That's very kind.
And I went, and sure enough, I was terrified because it seemed like everybody knew what they were doing, and I had no idea what was going on. But after you're there for a while, you realize, oh, everyone on this row is struggling. We're in it together. And then you form friendships, and then all of a sudden I'd be looking at a piece of music going, what's that little black rectangle thing? And the guy beside me would know, oh, that's a rest. Go, oh, okay, how many beats does it get? And then you just sort of, you're learning in a community. So it's terrifying, but at the same time, it's just wonderful, and it's a challenge that I think everyone should take up if you're even the tiniest bit curious about it.
Well, thanks for being really kind about that. It was, I think that the nice part about the ukulele as an instrument is it's you take it at whatever level you're at. You called me, I have C, F, and G. I'm like, well, that's where we all start, right? Let's go. Let's see what we can do to push you to that next level. And I hope every musician out there is thinking about that. I often think about, when you go to the symphony, every single one of those players had to be pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And a lot of times that journey may or may not be easy or fun. But I think with the ukulele, it's as fun as you can get it.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I think it's the funnest thing in the world. Yeah. I want to tell you about my theory about ukuleles, because I feel like, and no one studied this yet, right? But you've got this little instrument. If you guys are listening, you don't know what a ukulele is. It's about the tiniest little thing you could see. We're going to show you one on YouTube. But it's 4 strings, and it is played not like a guitar kind of down around your hips. It is played up near the heart. And so all of the notes it produces are largely from middle C and upwards 2 octaves. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So if you're playing a standard ukulele, it's producing only happy sounds. And then here you are with that instrument vibrating all this happy noise right at your heart chakra. Most of you know I'm a massage therapist. I'm out there a little bit. And so what I'm wondering is, do those frequencies, does that vibration at the heart chakra affect you on a spiritual level where you're getting a neurotransmitter flush of happy hormones? That's what I wonder. Do you think that I could be right about that?
I have no idea what you're talking about, but I hope it's true.
I think it's true. I taught ukulele lessons on a paddleboard this summer to a bunch of people up in Longmont, and you would just watch them all go from this place of, there's no way I can do this, I don't even know why I signed up for this, to within 15 minutes they're playing a song. And there was always this moment where they played the full song and they looked up and they had been transformed. Yeah. Right? This is amazing, and I can do this, and it makes me happy. So I don't know. I wonder.
I think it I hope.
Well, it's putting it like that, you're probably a really good guide also. If you're, if that's the way that if you're connecting people to that way of thinking, then you're guiding them into an experience and seeing things through your eyes, and that's really great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that experience it's fascinating. Last summer I taught at the Suzuki Violin Institute here in Colorado. I was their enrichment program, which meant that they would go do their violin or cello studies or whatever their main instrument was, and then when they had a break, they would come to my class for ukulele class. Well, I can't tell you the number of kids that just enjoyed that tremendously, because the other instruments they're working on, right? They're working to get better at violin, whereas ukulele, they were just getting there together to play music. And I think the joy that comes from that, and I like the idea of possibly sending you good positive vibrations physically, really may play a role, right? I don't know if that's true or not.
If somebody wants to do a research study on the biological impact neurotransmitters and chemistry, what happens to our biochemistry when we play ukulele, we'll be happy to play ukulele and get wired up for it. Yeah. Right?
We'll have a cup of coffee, we'll wire up, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'll give you my blood.
There you go.
All right. Well, you're very clear about your plans to dominate the world with ukulele music. What challenge?
I'm curious how often you guys practice, just quickly.
Well,
How often do you all get together?
The one thing I learned from the strum along group is that once a month turns it into a social activity. So if you get together and you're going to sing songs and strum it, you want to have beer and pizza and all of that to go along with it. So that's a social activity, super fun, super valuable. But if you want to have a musical activity, you really need a weekly rehearsal. So we've met every single week for many years now, and even into the summertime and all of that. So we just keep people in that process of continually being responsible for working a little harder all of the time. So yeah, every single week.
Cool.
Yeah. And you don't want to miss it, because if you miss it, you feel behind. Like you're driven to get there. And we have another thing about this orchestra I want you to understand. If you're a beginner, Gary has brilliantly organized it so that there are small groups. So if you come in like me, not knowing much of anything, and you're looking at sheet music for the first time when I don't read music, it's all a little overwhelming. So you end up in his group where the conductor is actually like walking you through all of your questions about a piece of music, and then modeling how you play it. How do you look at a piece of music and figure your way through the difficult parts and the easy parts, and then how you pick whether you're going to play melody or chords or an arpeggio. And you only get to do that twice with him. So after 2 semesters, you get kicked out. I got kicked out this semester. I'm in another small group, but it is super fun to have like that 30 minutes of, it feels like one-on-one, but you're really 1-on-20. But you're getting like undivided attention from Gary on a piece of music that you're going to play endlessly, right up until you get up in front of everyone and play it, on stage as a small group.
We had fun, didn't we?
So fun. Yeah. So fun. So fun. Okay, so let's talk about dominating the world with ukulele music. What's challenging you about your work right now, and what are you hoping to learn in the future?
Well, I think the biggest surprise for me and this growing so large is that I still just love going right back to the basics, teaching introduction to ukulele. I think that if getting people started correctly and well is so hard to do in this world, and I just love being able to do that for people. So I think that the teaching aspect of this is still really keen on my mind. The other thing I think is that I'm now in the lucky position of being able to teach teachers how to teach ukulele, and so we're really able to leverage what I think is a brilliant system that we've come up with to help other teachers take that message out and get other groups started. So we've been instrumental in a number of other small groups getting started around the state, and I am working through the library program here in Colorado to try to get ukulele, at least get it started in as many libraries as possible. And last summer I drove all to towns I'd never heard of to give ukulele seminars in the libraries there. And I see this instrument as being able to draw community together. It's perfectly suited to what libraries are doing these days in terms of gathering community to try new ideas and to do smart things with inexpensive and fun activities. And so for right now, my big goal for the orchestra is just to continue to grow it, not so much on a citywide basis anymore, but on a statewide basis.
So in the
And how far do people travel to come to your because you're called the Rocky Mountain Orchestra,
Right.
and how many people are actually like not from Denver? They come like from a distance.
Denver's a pretty big city geographically, and so
Yeah.
I've got people coming from Castle Rock. How far is that? 30 miles?
Pretty far
from
south.
there?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we have front coming them from Aurora, which again is quite a journey, and several from the mountains, and so a couple from Boulder. I have one woman who is coming down from Greeley, which is almost a 2-hour drive, something
Yeah.
like that. But
In traffic, yeah.
in traffic, yeah. And so we're trying to work out a system where we can not have her come to every rehearsal. But people are pulling from. I was originally going to call it a Denver Ukulele Orchestra, but the website had already been taken. So
What?
yeah, right. And so I don't know who took that, and then nothing ever happened with it. but the Rocky Mountain Ukulele Orchestra was available. So, and I do hope that here's what I know: what we're doing and the type of teaching that we're doing there is the correct thing, and I know that this thing's going to continue to grow as we get more teachers capable of teaching it. And so that's what we're working on.
And are you teaching the teachers to teach in the libraries?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the plan.
Well, that's what we've already done. We've already finished that part of it. I think we got about 10 teachers that are going to libraries and duplicating exactly what I did. But the next plan is to get some of those teachers to teaching intro classes, more extensive, more involved education in rec centers or community centers and that type of thing.
I know when I joined the orchestra, you were teaching the teachers to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting on the back row, like wondering, how I'm going to do all this, going, I want to learn to teach too, but I've got to like focus on this one piece of music. And I came home and told my husband, I was like, I want to teach this. And he's like, you don't even know what you're doing. I'm like, I know, but I want to teach it. I think when you're
and that's what we want people to understand is this instrument you share what you know, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have to be an expert at it at all. If you know C, F, and G, kinda, you got enough to get started, right? You got enough to get started.
And I think it's just the curiosity about it. If you've got the curiosity, then you should be sharing it. Because it's such a fun instrument.
And is this something where like, okay, so you guys are the people that are doing it in Denver. How connected are you with people who are doing it in other states or other areas? First of all, and is it something that is everywhere, like in every kind of like state?
Not been, what's everywhere these days is strum along groups, and so there were in most major cities there were, and a lot of even some less major cities. There's somebody who's decided they like ukulele, and they're getting groups together. They're usually just printing folk music out off of the internet. If your group happens to like the Beatles, there's plenty of that on the internet, and it will show the chords and the lyrics, and you sing and strum. And those groups are happening all over the world right now, which is super exciting. That wasn't happening at all when I started. And then the other thing, that's creeping into the picture now is people using it for more musical things other than how do you play a ukulele if you don't sing? What are you going to do to turn off your voice and get the ukulele to do the job for you? And that's been a much more slow process to evolve, and it's exactly where what we're doing here is thinking about if we treat this as a legitimate, serious musical instrument, how can we turn that into something that I guess I don't necessarily care if people come to listen to it. I care if people who are making the music are having a great time and are learning a lot and really taking that to the next level. Those types of groups have been much slower to evolve because it does take a little bit more knowledge to get that type of thing going. And it does, I've ended up having to quit all of my other jobs to do this full-time on a volunteer basis. And so, it is a quite time-consuming process to get something like this going.
Yeah. And you have a good bunch of volunteers at the orchestra helping with all manner of things.
Yeah. I think that's key to anybody who's ever built any type of organization is trying to get other people who have bought into the program and are willing to help. And, I think that's to your previous question, how connected are you with other groups? It's amazing the spider webs that the ukulele community has in terms of, hey, I'm in love with this. I'm willing to help out here. Plus, I want to let my group in California that I came from, or North Carolina, or wherever you happen to be from, sort of sending back, hey, we got this cool thing going on in Denver. We got this cool thing that's happening here. Those sorts of networking opportunities are coming. The other nice thing about ukulele is it's still a pretty small community. So even the most famous ukulele players, you can run into them and talk to them right at any ukulele festival. There, the chances of you ever getting to talk to Eddie Van Halen at a guitar festival is very small, but the chances of you getting to talk to James Shim and McCurl, who's our number one ukulele guy,
I met him.
Yeah.
I met him up in Estes Park.
Yeah, you just hang out and chat with him, so it's exciting that we can still talk to our very top performers, one-on-one in the hallways.
Yeah. And there are ukulele festivals everywhere. Denver has a really nice one at Swallow Hill, and I went last year for the first time, and it's one night and I think a full day on Saturday. So Friday night they have some headlining acts and then maybe a couple workshops, and then Saturday it's all workshops and like 3 hours of world-class professional ukulele players. So I mean, and that is going on all over the world. But the strum-alongs are there. That's where you meet like people that are just like you, interested in doing this playing this instrument and having a good time together. Like we were just in Sarasota, Florida, last month, and um, I looked up online, where are the ukulele players? And there was a ukulele shop in Nokomis, Florida, and we met the owner there, and they were having a jam that Friday. And the next thing you know, they're sending you the songs and giving you the songbook PDF, and you load that up on your iPad and go over there and just make some friends. So it's a good way to like see a community too, much like going to a coffee shop, like pulling it up on Yelp. Where's the great coffee shop in town? And then you go and you can meet the people of the place because they're hanging out there. Same thing with strum-alongs. So it's cool stuff. Um, so inside the orchestra, there are many jobs that you should be doing. You should be learning arpeggios. You should be sharing social media events on social media. You should be practicing your ukulele for 30 minutes a day for a month. And Gary has this system where you get all these ribbons for accomplishing these things. What I want to know is how much do you practice these days, Gary?
So it's a complicated answer to that. We get good at whatever we do every day, right? And
Right.
so I need people in the orchestra to be good at playing the ukulele. So I expect them to practice every day, or at least that's our goal, right? And that's our
Right.
standard. You get a ribbon, right? Our merit badge program for the ukulele orchestra, you get a ribbon for that. Since I don't play in the orchestra, I need to be good at what I do, which is writing music and conducting. And those I do every day. I do teach every day. I write music every day. So that's where my practice is coming in. Unfortunately, because of my time constraints, I am pretty limited on how often I practice. The instrument itself, I feel like I've reached a point where I can get stuff together when I need to, and so my practice is usually centered around if a performance is coming up or something specific, then I will focus in on that. But in terms of daily practice, shut up. No, I don't do it every day.
Do you have a song that you like to play? Like every time you pick up the ukulele, it's just what is it?
Moon River.
Moon River.
Yeah, that's my go-to too.
Do you want to pick it up and play?
Do you want me to play it?
You might as well. Just a little bit of it.
Do we get to edit it if I make a mistake?
No edits.
Okay. Let's look.
That's beautiful. That's perfect.
It goes on. He repeats the whole idea.
Well, that was the perfect lead up to what I want to say next to you, because I don't want to make you cry, but you almost made me cry with that Moon River business. I do want to tell you your leadership style is about the best thing in the world, and I don't think I'm alone in thinking that. Not only do you put people at ease immediately with your great sense of humor that is evident even in your website text, but you're the kind of person who uses your power for good. We need more of that in this world. I see you empowering everybody around you to learn and grow as individuals and as a community. And I'm curious if that's just how you came into this world as that person, or did you develop that in yourself mindfully?
Well, you're very kind. You're very kind. I don't have an act. I am what I am, and so I don't try to be anything other than what I always am every day. People catch you if you have an act. You know, they catch you. They figure that out, and so I've never put on. I'm not a good actor. I took an acting class in college. It was terrible. But you know, I think that I fancy myself a tiny bit of a comedian, so I think that sense of humor comes out from you know, just being a little bit funny. And I think really I have a belief in the sense of goodness, and if you do things right every single day, that positive things happen from that. And so I don't know if I don't think I have a style of leadership or a methodology or any of that. I just think I believe in people, and I think that if you trust people and let them and give them the space to do what they need to do, they're going to step up. And the times they don't, it's not worth worrying about. So I think I hope that I hope it's not a style. I hope it's just what people do, is just, have faith in people and do the best job you can do every day and have fun while you're doing it. And I think that may be my
That's
leadership
your
style.
life philosophy.
I guess that's my life
Are
philosophy.
you having fun? Okay, keep doing that.
For you, then it sounds like a dream to be able to do something where, like, definitely everybody that you're trying to organize is doing it by choice because that's what they want to be doing, rather than some other kind of, like, monetary reason or, fame or glory, like people are doing it.
The thing that you're talking about there is absolutely true. When you are around people who want to do something, all you need to do is get out of the way, give them the tools and get out of the way. I think, my experience in management and corporate business, and when I was a teacher, and when I was in real estate, when I was in here and there, when people are there because they have to be, it's a much more challenging environment and a much different mindset. Whereas if everybody would just do what is meaningful to them and really stay focused in on that, I think that it works out. And I think that, I've never ever had to feel like I got to come down on so and so because of this or that. It just doesn't. It's not my style. I just figure, do what you love, do what you want to do with your life. I'm now 55. I see the deadline, right? I see a deadline out there. It's driving me bananas. And I just think, man, you better do what you want to do and do it as well as you can now. And that will change over time what you want to do. But I just feel like the notion of, God, I have to do this and I have to do this, that can be very weighing on your soul. And I just don't think it's good for anybody.
Definitely not fun.
Right.
Do you have hobbies outside of ukulele?
Not anymore. My only hobby is I've been a writer for my whole life, and I continue to do that. Not most of everything I've ever written will never see the light of day, but I think, I've written 4 musicals. I've written a couple of novels. They were horrendous, but I wrote them. And I'm deep down in my soul, I'm a writer and I'm an artist, and you can't turn that off. So that, I would say, that's my hobby.
What do you write about? What are your novels? Are they fiction, nonfiction?
Oh, God. Well, let's see. One was about a circus, fiction. It was unbelievably bad. And then I wrote one about the flying spaghetti monster, 100,000 words on the true flying spaghetti monster, not the one that you see popularly portrayed on the internet. And then my 4 musicals, one was on Tiger Woods' Girlfriends. One was a space alien visits the planet and it doesn't go well. I do have a zombie cheerleader or musical, 54 songs on zombie cheerleaders. This was way before zombies were popular, by the way. And then I have one just on transvestites living in a post-apocalyptic world. So it's they're running a pet sitting service and Paris Hilton was the one who survived the apocalypse as well. So they have an issue.
But great fashion.
Yes, they're very well dressed.
They've got great fashion advice still.
Yeah, so I write some very serious stuff.
I have a friend who designs formal wear for dogs.
Nice.
Her business is called Pret-a-Porter. That's a true story.
That's funny.
That's true. Austin, do you have any questions on that front before I move on?
Please.
So Paris Hilton.
All right, so it shows a tiny bit of So there was a moment where Paris Hilton was famous, and she was not famous for necessarily positive reasons. She wrote a book, honest to God, called Confessions of an Heiress, and how if you are how to live your life as if you are rich. And there she has, if I remember right, there's 17 major points in there of how you should go live your life. And so I thought, well, when the apocalypse comes, they're taking all of the good people away. So I figured transvestites and Paris Hilton would be left over. The other,
although the transvestites are the best people.
they're probably the best people,
Right.
right? But in this story, right? And the other odd thing about the apocalypse is that animals, the theory that why we can eat and kill and eat animals is they don't have souls. And so when the apocalypse comes, animals will be left behind because they don't have souls. There is actually a website out there called the Post-Apocalyptic Pet Sitting Service, and you can sign up to have them come take care of your pet after the apocalypse. And so I figured that after the apocalypse, there would be transvestites, Paris Hiltons, and a lot of pets. And so that's what that musical is about.
Oh my God.
I don't know if Paris Hilton is a great person or a terrible person, but I do know her book is hilariously stupid. And so it made for perfect fodder to create a musical out of.
And you wrote that when?
Now, you know that the Pope declared a couple of years ago that all animals and dogs do go to heaven.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, I think.
But I guess this was before Pope Francis, right?
Yes.
Probably.
Before that book was written back in the day when we didn't know that.
Yeah. So So I don't know. We don't want to get into too much depth on what the Catholics.
We're not
do
going
and
into
don't.
Catholicism
Yeah.
today. We're not going into that.
It's been a little rough for them lately. So.
Yeah. So let's talk about your favorite 3 coffee shops. We love to get that from our guests.
So here in Denver, well, I'm going to be, things are going to come out of my mouth that are controversial, but not a huge fan of the modern coffee shop style. They're really focusing in on getting lighter roasts into the mix, and they're getting, I don't know what I'd call millennial stuff, think knowledge into these modern coffee shops. So I'm still kind of a stick in the mud when it comes to what I want to see out of a coffee shop. I really care about the barista and who's going to be making my coffee. And so I don't necessarily get hooked into a particular place overall. I think when I was growing up, we had we had the cool coffee shop that I went to, and then we had eventually Paris on the Platte came around, and they had brick walls and wooden chairs, and it felt very coffee shop-ish in there, and they served horrible coffee. And so I just feel like sometimes we are swayed by the environment to think that it's a great coffee shop. And so I struggle with that. We have a ton of coffee shops in my neighborhood, and I've been to every one of them, and I would say that very few of them are like, oh my God, that was the greatest thing ever. I will say that the coffee shop close to my house is called Pablo's. They do a really excellent dark roast there. I think their main store is in 6th and Washington there. And I've been going there for a number of years. They do a really quality job. The people that work there have been there a long time and really do a nice job with that. The other place that I go often is called Corvus Coffee here in town. I don't necessarily think much of their coffee shop itself, but they do create a fabulous bean there. And so I will often buy their beans there and then take those home. And, they're pretty creative about their roasts. And it's easy for these. I think a lot of times modern coffee shops have to do whatever Starbucks doesn't do. And so I think that's where this fascination with light roast is coming from, because they think that Starbucks over roasts and burns all their coffee, so they won't do that. And I think the other coffee shop here, there's a place called Kaladi Brothers, and they've been roasting their own beans here forever. And they started down in the university area, and I noticed they now have a shop over here on South Broadway. So I like their beans and their process quite a lot as well. So those are probably the 3 places that I picked first in Denver to go to.
Okay. Is there a coffee shop in the larger world that you have a fond memory of or recall?
Oh, I wish I could remember the name. There was a coffee shop in Berkeley, California that we went to that had all this death and destruction all over the walls, and they could not have made a better latte. It could not have been a better experience. I wish I could remember the name of that place. I also was in Berlin one time, and Berlin's a great walking city, and you run into coffee shops a lot there. Most of the coffee's terrible in Germany, but this one place had a really fine, fine pour. And again, I don't remember the name, but
now, does your aversion to Central and South American coffees extend to espresso blends, or?
I don't know if it's necessarily an aversion. My flavor palette has reached a point where the nuttiness and the walnut flavoring, not flavorings, but that sense of the nuttiness of Latin American coffees, I don't like it anymore. And it's just a person, it has nothing to do with the quality of the beans or the way it's brewed or any of that. I just don't like that particular flavor profile for myself. Most people love it. Most people in America, that is their main coffee source. And so it's just a personal decision on mine that I like Asian coffees better. I do find occasionally an African coffee that I really think is entertaining and fun. I do tend to drink a lot of black coffee rather than, the fancier stuff. And so I'm very keenly aware of what flavor profile I like. It just doesn't, I'm not equating that to a quality difference between the two. I just like that better.
All right, Austin, how you feel?
I'm feeling good.
Okay,
I'm feeling warm.
You got any more questions?
Well, I'd be really curious to see. I'd be curious if you ever came into San Francisco and you came into Spikes, what you would think of it there, because we do like a lot of the people that we attract there. They're either, a lot of them are from like Italy or Spain or so. If they're traveling and they come in there, they're like, oh my God, I've been all over San Francisco and the coffee is terrible. Whereas, people here in the United States, when they come, this is, for that type that you were describing, the more like light roast and stuff, there's a lot of that here. But then where I work, Spikes, like we actually do more like the old school, like old European style of like a darker roast and stuff like that. But the reason I asked that question about the espresso was because it is, our espresso blend does have a lot of South and Central American coffees in it, but we do that style that you seem to favor. So I'd just be curious what you thought of it. If you ever come to San Francisco, come to Spikes and let me know what you think.
I will be there for sure. It's interesting because I'm old now, and we grew up with Folgers in a can. That's what we had, and it has that nutty flavor to it, right? Then Starbucks rolled through, and they sold us what dark roast is, and that became my thing. And now it feels like we're sort of going back in the other direction to some more lighter roasts, some more a lot more diversity in coffee in general, which is a good thing for everybody. They can kind of find their coffee spot that they like and their barista that does it the way they like. I think that's super exciting about the way coffee is going right now. I just know what I personally am after. And, some shops can really nail it, and others, I pour cream in.
I don't think I know the difference. What is served at Driotti? Like, what is that Piedmont espresso blend?
I actually have no idea these days because I've been away from there for 11 years. So I feel like the owner Scott has probably changed and innovated, and it'd be interesting to know what they're doing now. I'm not really sure.
We got to get somebody from there on the show.
I know.
I drink Starbucks, and I had a nutty coffee this morning. It was delicious at Crema. So I think I like all of it. Maybe have a broad palate out of desperation because I haven't learned to make my own coffee until like a year ago. Not even.
That kind of sounds like how I approach wine.
Yeah.
I'm like, as long as it gets me drunk and it doesn't taste like shit, I'm okay with it.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, we ready to wrap up?
I think so.
Okay.
It's great meeting you, Gary.
Really nice meeting you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Is it a prairie dog? It's a groundhog.
It's a groundhog. So actually, the reason I have this groundhog hat on is because every year there's a Groundhog Day party up in the Haight-Ashbury, and I've been going for years to it. This great couple has been throwing it every year. They open their home up to all kinds of different people. And then there's, at some point during the party, there's a procession down Haight Street. in San Francisco. So that's that's kind of like a commercial strip. It was like where the Summer of Love and all that happened in San Francisco. And so there's like some people that have musical instruments. There's a guy that usually comes. He actually came all the way down from Seattle this year because he's moved away from San Francisco to come to this party. And we go down Haight Street. Some people are singing, some people are dancing, some people are just hanging out, and kind of like go into bars and like all of a sudden flood the bar with 50 people in there singing and dancing and telling everybody happy Groundhog Day. So they give these hats out. So I have this little groundhog hat from the party. Jodie, you'd love it.
I would have to have a tail.
But you could definitely play your ukulele in the situation. Like that would be a good addition to the party.
We got to go next year. Next
Yeah.
year we're coming for
Okay.
Groundhog Day party.
All right.
I think we're going to have a big Lebowski party.
Be fine.
I know, right? Have you seen that movie, Austin?
Not since I was in like early high school.
Well, I think
So I have
we
to watch
hadn't
it again.
We rewatched it about a month ago and just rolled off the sofa laughing. It's so good. Like whatever you remember about it, I think it's like 10 times better 20 years later. Yeah. Okay. Well, as we end our episode, we want to again thank our guest, Gary Jugert, for being with us today. And thank all you listeners for joining us. We want to hear from you guys too. Tell us if you know a barista or a coffee industry expert who needs to be featured on our show. Write to us. Tell us your questions about coffee. Whatever your thoughts are, send us your big ideas at info@baristaunfiltered.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, and we appreciate all of our subscribers on YouTube. We're inching closer to our goal of 100, so thanks for that. We've got a couple podcast patrons now on Patreon. If you want to join those cool kids and support the podcast, head on over to patreon.com/baristaunfiltered. I'm Jodie Lee.
And I'm Austin Miller.
Y'all be good and stay caffeinated, friends. Bye.